night, the Niners improved to 8-0 in a tough test against the elusive Kyler Murray. Defensive lineman DeForest Buckner was asked about defending the rookie quarterback. Say what?
You haven't faced a real mobile quarterback until tonight. What did his ability to move around?
Yeah, man, he's like a little squirrel back there. You know what I mean? Just a little squirrel, like running everywhere and everything. So.
People need to know how big DeForest Buckner is. He's your size.
My size. Yeah, he's 6'8", 320.
So he's almost a full foot, and at least, what do you think Kyler weighs? $185?
Yeah.
$190?
So about around 200. So he's 100+ pounds more.
Yeah, about a foot and 100 pounds of difference.
Is a gigantic squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good squirrel.
That is a gigantic
squirrel. I like that. Good job, Photoshop department.
That is not even Photoshop. That's just one big, gigantic squirrel.
With a human head on it. What's that? Murray. A centaur is a horse with a human head.
It's got to be about pushing 6'9" in that picture.
Okay.
Time for stories to start your morning. That's a real height, isn't it?
That's a real height. Confirmed. As opposed to what? Can't he just, let's just keep going.
Brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil.
It's a real height.
Kawhi Leonard took on his former team last night. That after taking off the game prior due to load management. Well, he managed quite well in this one. Game high 38 points, 12 boards. Clippers get the big win. Nick, how did Kawhi look last night?
Kawhi was exceptional last night, doing it on both ends. You hold the Spurs under 100. He pours in 38 points, but he had to be exceptional. If Kawhi is all of a sudden going to be taking games off before we even hit Halloween, before Paul George is back, if you're going to give away the front end, you're shaking your head. They gave away the front end of a back-to-back. You can only do that if you are guaranteed to win the back end of the back-to-back. They were because he was so great.
I don't know why you want to shade Kawhi Leonard. I mean, after he elevated himself in the conversation for best players in the world, you can understand why Doc Rivers wants to have a little bit of load management right there. He's trying to make sure that Kawhi is available and at his best when it really matters. That ain't right now.
Yeah, but last year he had load management because he was coming off a major injury. He's not coming off a major injury. Paul George isn't there yet, and he's already taking days off. It's fine.
But isn't last year a point in case as to why you continue to do it that way? Yeah, they won a championship last year.
Okay, yeah, the seeding's going to matter a little more. Well, listen, they won last night. He was great. I give him credit. I think it's a little odd he's already taken nights off, but we'll see how it works out for him.
All right, out to Thursday Night Football. Niners taking on the Cardinals, and Jimmy G had his best performance of the season, finishing 317 yards, 4 touchdowns in the 28-25 win over the Cardinals. Can Jimmy G prove he's more than a game manager last night?
Yeah, he was more than a game manager last night. He made some tight window throws. I thought that Kyle Shanahan did a good job of helping him out in terms of the overall play calling. A lot of shots with play actions. Not a lot of production in the run game for the 49ers. A little over 100 yards on 31 attempts, but it's more about the attempts, keeping that Arizona Cardinals defense honest, and they took advantage of the opportunities down the field.
Listen, I can't say he proved he's more than a game manager last night. Last night, he was far more than a game manager. But one game against the Cardinals defense does not necessarily change your overall opinion of a player. But I will say this again. If he plays anything close to this level, they're the best team in football. They've got a top 2 defense in football, the #1 running game in football. I think an elite head coach in Kyle Shanahan from an offensive perspective. The only question has been their passing game. If they can just be a top 8 passing offense moving forward, then the team has no weakness. It, to me, still, though, is a valid question, despite how brilliant he was last night.
Now, when Kevin Durant and Draymond Green had an on-court altercation back in November during a Warriors loss to the Clippers, many just sort of filed it under teammates butting heads. But KD says that argument carried more weight than most people know, and that it definitely played a role in his decision to leave the Warriors and ultimately land with the Nets. All right, Nick, this is really interesting. What do you make of all this, especially now that we know how this narrative played itself out?
Well, I'm glad Kevin Durant's being honest, finally. I mean, he says played a bigger role than most people knew. Man, there are some of us, and I understand right now, sports or otherwise, it's very in vogue to say the media is awful, the media is fake news, the media is the worst of everything. Sometimes we know things. And I'm not one that tries to defend the media, but sometimes we didn't all just get together and say, hey, guys, let's start a conspiracy theory about Kevin Durant, about his displeasure in Golden State, about his rift with Draymond, and let's just pick a city, New York City. We were right on all of it. Now, I will admit, I had the team in New York City wrong, as a lot of people did, but we had been telling you ever since this argument that a relationship This was a marriage that was already on the rocks, and then all of a sudden, you check the phone, and it's like, you've been texting with who? Okay, no, it's over. And we knew it was over. Now, I applaud KD for being honest about it, and it's tough to kill Draymond too much for two reasons. One is, Draymond always been this guy. KD knew he was this guy when he came there, and I don't know if KD comes there if Draymond is not recruiting him while he's on the Thunder.
Right.
So it's like, you know what I mean? If the person who brings you into a job is also the reason you get fired from the job, how much do you blame them if you wouldn't have gotten the job otherwise? Like, I don't know. But yes, I will give Kevin Durant credit for being more honest about this than he ever has been. Maybe now he feels he's finally able to because he's not on the team, and maybe Kevin Durant has the trauma of what happened to him on the court in the Western Conference, or in the NBA Finals, pardon me, has given him maturity, or maybe given him, I don't want to say a peace, but he's in a different place mentally than he was before. But obviously, you can't have someone call you what Draymond called him and say, we don't need you, we won without you, when that was already percolating in your brain. Is that how they feel about me? And come back from that. It was the nuclear option. Draymond pressed the red button, and he knew what the result would be, and Kevin Durant's now confirming it.
Yeah, I mean, fights among teammates happen. I mean, they're usually verbal. Sometimes they end up being physical altercations, but there's always mutual respect there. But I think in this instance, KD feels like there was a line crossed and that Draymond Green, to a man, didn't respect him. Now, you go back to how all of this came together. I think this was a marriage born out of necessity, because the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, they wanted to keep this dynastic run pushing. And then KD, obviously, he knew that he needed some jewelry for his resume and ultimately his legacy. So when they came together some years back, it was something that was mutually beneficial. But I think that as it's run its course, as they won championships, and as KD got a finals MVP, he recognized that he was never going to get the credit that he was seeking in Golden State, because the core of that team was already in place before he got there, and they had already won at the highest level. So I think he recognized that at some point he's going to have to branch off and start his own team where he is the focal point and the unquestioned leader, in order to check the boxes that he wants to check and be in that conversation for all-time greats. I think he's already an all-time great. But when you look at these players nowadays, when you look at LeBron James and all of these guys, they're consumed with how they'll be remembered. And I think that that was the motivation for KD, alongside with the rift with Draymond Green, to leave this past summer.
You wonder if Draymond regrets any of it, just judging from where the Warriors are right now. But if you were the Warriors and your sole purpose moving into a new arena was to try to keep this core intact, or what I mean is try to keep KD there, what would you have done differently? If you're the Warriors, you knew what really happened there.
They could have traded Draymond last year after this happened. And I know there were at least.
Would that have made KD
No, but
stay?
that's the problem. The problem is KD was already, it's now been reported, KD, Kyrie, and DeAndre Jordan on a luxury ship in, you know, during the 2016 Rio Olympics, all got together and said, it'd be really fun if we could play together one day. Not shockingly, a few weeks later, Kyrie, who a few weeks prior had talked about being so excited about extending his run with LeBron, he not only demands a trade, but says, I'll have knee surgery if you don't trade me. He is working his way out. Kevin Durant that summer decides to go with the Golden State Warriors, and then they all had their eyes on playing together in New York, one of the teams in New York, at some point in the future. Kevin Durant, I'm not the first person to say this, so it's not my take, but I think it's the correct take. He's a seeker. He's looking for what's next and looking for a level of fulfillment that he thought the championship would bring him. It did not. When you say it was out of necessity, now that is totally correct, because what the Warriors had realized was, man, this dude, LeBron James, he took a 6 when his second best teammate was Dellavedova, came back from 3-1 down on the best team we've ever had on our 73-win team. We need some help. And Kevin Durant's thinking, the team that just came back from 3-1 down on me lost to the guy who beat me in the finals, the first time I was in the finals. So they needed to come together to, they felt, to overcome what LeBron and Kyrie were doing out east. but it was always a shotgun marriage. And it was always, and people are going to kill Draymond. I know, Candy, the narrative's going to be, how many championships Draymond cost them? Because people think they wouldn't have lost in 2016 if Draymond doesn't punch at LeBron and get suspended. I think they would have anyway, but regardless. And now you lose Kevin Durant and the team's a mess. Okay, but Draymond is the one that was recruiting Kevin Durant during the season. Draymond is the one that was tears in his eyes in the parking lot after they had lost to the Cavs, said, KD, we need you. If Draymond hadn't been all in on that, KD doesn't go there to begin with. So how much did he cost you? How much did he help you win? Those, to me, are part and parcel with the same conversation.
And here's the thing. It was a point of contention because from Draymond Green and the rest of those Golden State Warriors, they couldn't understand why Kevin Durant would leave a perfect basketball situation to go somewhere else. I mean, it's already a historically great team. Why would you leave that? The only reason that you would be for individual recognition. Yes. It wouldn't be for team goals. And I think that was the frustration from Draymond Green, who's the ultimate team player.
KD wants to be one of the greatest players ever. Right now, he's considered the third best player of his own era. LeBron, Steph, Durant. That's tough.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break. Coming up, will the Patriots' undefeated season come to a screeching halt in Baltimore? That's still ahead.